Do customers, I'm not talking about the customers of Boeing like United, I'm talking about airline customers, like customers of the airlines, do they care what equipment they're flying on?
Yeah, so first, thanks for having me on. I always enjoy being here. But, I think under normal circumstances, normal times, customers care a lot less. They get to the airport, they get on whatever airplane is out front. But I'm hearing more questions, too, from people asking me if I'd fly the airplane. I would. But I think since MCAS, the crashes in 2019, and with this panel blowout, there's a lot more awareness about potential quality problems at Boeing, and customers are a lot more focused on the airplane, and that's just generally, obviously, bad for airlines flying the airplane.
So describe the situation for Boeing CEO Dave Calhoun come the earnings call this week on Wednesday. I'm just curious, it's not going to be an ordinary call. We know that. One analyst describing it as kind of a job interview for Dave Calhoun. So I don't know, how are you approaching it? What are you going to be looking for? What do you think are the most important things that need to be asked of this CEO?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the biggest question we all have is the FAA has put this cap on production rates for the time being. A lot of folks in the analyst community, as well as myself, are just trying to figure out. Boeing was breaking to a rate 38 by the end of the year, by the end of 2023. And so the question is, does this cap include that 38? And if it does, I think that Boeing's delivery plans for 2024 could still be intact. That's away from the obvious, questions about how Dave Calhoun is addressing the quality problems at his manufacturing business, which are critical, right, to the company, and probably the most important question on the call. But I do think, again, all analysts want to figure out how should we really be thinking about deliveries in 2024, and I think we'll want to know what the customers are saying, right? We heard United came out with some pretty, some not so good statements about the Dash 10 and their willingness to wait for Boeing. We heard Ryanair chime in as hey, we'll take all we can. We'd like to hear what Calhoun's hearing from the rest of the customers about their concern with the airplane and Boeing's timing. That's important.
How do you see Boeing handling the quality issues? What's been your interpretation? What's your analysis?
So my analysis, we started saying this looked like a problem in the manufacturing process, not in the design, which is good from the standpoint that it means that there's no major engineering that has to change here to make this airplane and the airplanes are in the fleet flight-worthy, safe. That's a positive.
And that's opposed to the MCAS. What happened with MCAS?
Yeah, that's opposed to what happened with MCAS, because MCAS is very much a design issue, and I think which can create much bigger costs. But to me, it's clear that the game plan that from pre-pandemic of I think less oversight on the factory floor and less training isn't going to work post-pandemic. There's been just so much turnover at both Boeing and its suppliers that I think these companies have to drop back to a much more basic form of manufacturing oversight, where there's a lot of supervision on the lines and a lot more training, because they lost a lot of their talent. So we're going to want to hear how he's going to fix that. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I interrupted you. Please finish.
Yeah, no, so we want to hear how he's going to fix that. And I think the challenge here is that means that Boeing and Spirit probably aren't going back to the margins we saw pre-pandemic anytime soon, because they've really got to dig in on the factory floor and create this constancy in what they're building. And that, again, it's going to be different than what they did before.
This is what I was going to say. There's a great story on the Bloomberg. Tim and I have been kind of kicking it around, but this idea that Walmart is offering some of its store managers up to $20,000 in stock grants, the opportunity to maybe make $400,000 a year, I guess, depending on the location and job. But what I'm wondering is, so many CEOs come in here, leaders of institutions, and say, it's all about the worker. We've got to take care of our worker. That's the most important, the company culture. Is that what it comes down to, Boeing, and whether that's money and oversight or whatever the heck it is, George? Does it really just kind of come down to that?
I do think it comes down to that, right? I think this business is very much different than other manufacturing businesses, I've looked at over the years. If you go to an auto plant, you'll find a lot of automation, you'll find a lot of standardization, and those two items help them sort of manage a really big workforce that can have different levels of skills, different levels of training. The automation helps fix some of those challenges. Aerospace doesn't have that. These aerospace factories have been around since World War II. There are not a lot of automated processes in it. It's not hugely standardized, and it needs 100% right quality on day one. And again, what I think this means is you've lost some of those workers that have been there for decades, and it means the company is going to have to reinvest in people, reinvest in training, and not be worried so much about delivering dividends and share buybacks, but it's making sure the product is higher quality.